Hello everyone, welcome to the Singapore Business Agility Meetup, brought to you by Epic Singapore. We're proud to bring you today the meetup with the authors of the book Sooner, Safer, Happier, focused on the insights and anti-patterns and patterns for Agile Transformations. So without further ado, here's our presenters for the night, and over to you, John.
Great, thank you, Andrew. So we're going to give you a quick overview of the book. We will run a Menti survey. It's going to be interesting to find out a little bit more about your current patterns and anti-patterns that you're experiencing, and then we'll have some Q&A. So first of all, in terms of introductions, my name's John Smart. I have been an agile and lean practitioner since the early 1990s. Throughout my working career, I've taken teams on the journey from traditional ways of working to more agile and lean ways of working. My previous role, I was leading ways of working across Barclays Bank globally, across 80,000 people. And now I work across industry sectors globally, helping organizations exhibit more business agility.
Hi, I'm Myles, Ogilvie. I have been come up through the project and program management route. I worked at Barclays for 13 years. The past 3 or 4 years of those, I was leading the ways of working initiative across Barclays Investment Bank, partnering with John at group level. And more recently, I've been consulting and training, and obviously helping to contribute to Sooner, Safer, Happier as well.
My name is Zsolt Berend. I have 16 years experience as a practitioner, coach and trainer in business agility. Worked for a number of years together with Myles, Simon and John at Barclays. And currently I'm a product owner for a BBSSH dashboard at Nationwide Building Society and a business agility coach.
I'm Simon Rohrer. I'm a software engineer, enterprise architect, and ways of working enterprise coach. I work for Saxo Bank here in Copenhagen. It's 10 a.m. for me. I started on this ways of working journey in 1999 when I picked up the Extreme Programming White Book, and I've never looked back. Thanks.
So we are your 4 authors, and we are here to answer any questions you have. First of all, I'm going to give you we're going to do a Menti survey. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Myles.
The question here is, in an organization where you are working at now to improve ways of working, or where you've recently been working at to help them improve ways of working, is there a clear articulation of why the change is necessary? And are the colleagues that you have in that organization engaged in that? Is there a broad understanding and awareness of why change is necessary in that organization? And is there a clear articulation of the outcomes that are desired from these new ways of working? Are those outcomes perhaps being measured? Or is it more a case of, this is a transformation, it's agile because agile's good, it's DevOps because DevOps good, it's cloud because cloud is good? So this bottom question is kind of very much is not so great, whereas the upper questions very much is more positive. So it's the scale is the other way around here. Reveal the answers so far. Zsolt, over to you.
Thank you. So interesting. It's quite positive that there is more towards your clear articulation of why change in your experience with your organization. It's 3.3 towards the right. It's good to see. We don't usually see that. Colleague engagement, on the other hand, it's 2.9 only, so it's more towards the left. So there is no real colleague engagement. In your experience, clear articulation of desired business outcomes is just in the middle. So it's half of your experience either way, and measuring those outcomes and being transparent is pretty hard. We always see it's less than 3 usually. So it's, no transparency and no measurements. And Agile for Agile's sake, it sounds like it's not so much. So it's somewhat in the middle, but more towards the left. It's good to see that this is not Agile for Agile's sake for the majority. Actually, it's even better now. Thank you.
So this is more free form, and I'll just leave the results open here. So the question is, in your organization, what challenges are you facing to improving ways of working? So we're calling the challenges you face are often we present them as anti-patterns. What anti-patterns do you see? If you start any of those, whether it's leadership or whatever, start it with AP, 2 letters AP, and then whatever, describe your anti-pattern, or what's working well. What do you see as a successful pattern? So start that with a P.
Any other? Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy, and it's whether we need to do this at all. Could be an anti-pattern. Unlearning old habits. Yes, so it's again the theme of unlearning underlying behaviors and learning new. Outcomes over methodologies. Yes, focusing on outcomes. Communication, it's another good theme. Communication.
Finance, I see finance crops up a bit, doesn't it, Zsolt? And governance,
yeah.
We see those many times.
Coaching, definitely, so having the support. Strong belief in why, emotional connection for individuals and space for them to define their contribution pool changes. Awesome, yeah, really great pattern.
Great, thank you. So listen, I hope that's been of interest for all of you to see where your respective organizations are at. And what I am going to do is post a little into the chat link, an article based off all of the meetups where we've run this survey so far, just to see where, beyond this meetup, where your colleagues are at around the world, if of interest in terms of patterns and anti-patterns, and some of the responses here may be of use. So thanks for the survey. That's that part of it. John, I'm going to hand back the screen to you now to take us to the next stage.
Some of the key themes that stood out to me there were, I saw a bit of a skew towards doing Agile. I saw a bit of a skew to framework-led. There were some themes there around autocratic leadership. On the positive, there was a skew to a clear why. And we did, and what is relatively unusual in terms of articulating outcomes, that was higher than normal. So I think there's some reasons to be optimistic in what we just saw. What I'm going to do now is we're going to share the top 8 patterns and anti-patterns. These correspond to the chapters in the book. These are the main themes. These are based on our own learning through failing. These are learnings through the mistakes that we've made. I like the language patterns and anti-patterns. Patterns generally will give you a tailwind and make a hard job slightly less hard. And anti-patterns will generally give you a headwind and generally make a hard job harder. So the first one is to focus on the outcomes first and foremost. For example, better value, sooner, safer, happier. The mistake that we made back in 2015 is we ran an Agile transformation. I was the head of the Agile transformation. We called it an Agile transformation. There is everything wrong with those words. Number one, capital A, Agile, equals, we've done badly, doing Agile. Number two is the capital T in transformation, which is you don't have a choice, top down, you have to adopt Agile whether you like it or not. As you can imagine, some people will welcome that message and quite a lot of people will not welcome that message. It doesn't feel like there's a great deal of ownership in that message. And it isn't really part of the mindset how it's teams. So we pivoted and we pivoted to these outcomes. The first one is better, which is quality. This is building quality in. So for example, to quote Deming, if you inspect quality in at the end, it's like saying, I'll burn the toast and you scrape. So tell you what, let's not burn the toast in the first place. So build quality in. The second one is value. Value is unique. It is why you're in business. It's what you're doing as a company. It's measured through OKRs, where KR, key results, are your leading and lagging value measures. That's how you're defining the value. It could be, if you're a jet engine manufacturer, it could be serviceable hours, flying hours. It could be cost of maintenance, not so good at the moment in the pandemic. If you're a fashion retailer, it could be sales of luxury bags, sales of trench coats. If you are a bank, it could be your market share for mortgages. It could be the amount of first-time buyers you're helping on the property ladder. It could be the amount of lending that you're giving out during the pandemic to help companies survive. So it's entirely unique. Sooner is the heart of Agile and Lean, time to learning, the quickest time to learning. So this is lead time. Lead time is the point you start working on something to get it into the hands of the consumer. Throughput is a count of items of value over a given period of time. And flow efficiency is the amount of time that work is being worked on versus work is waiting. And you don't want to create a feature factory. So, my advice here is that as you reduce lead time, you do not want throughput to go up by a corresponding amount. So for example, if you halve lead time, you don't want throughput to double, because you should be using some of the any time, any efficiency gains you have to be innovating, speaking to the customer, working on continuous improvement. Improving daily work is as important as daily work. The next one is safer, agile, not fragile. This is governance, risk and compliance, data privacy, information security, money laundering, fraud, PCI, etc. All of the kind of the mandatory risk stories that you absolutely have to do. So that's the focus on safer. And then happier is happier colleagues, customers, citizens, and climate, because improving how you do what you do is not at any cost to the planet or to society. And on that society point, personally, I'm very proud of the fact that helping organizations improve their ways of working, I have never been involved in a redundancy exercise. I firmly believe that everybody can unlearn and relearn. I see some organizations who use Agile as a, really the drive is around cost cutting. And Agile is like given we're doing this big cost cutting exercise, we can use Agile as a bit of like an excuse to, to get Agile in, and we can get back to our previous levels of efficiency by having spent less money and having made a load of people redundant. So, my advice on that is separate out cost very deliberately. There is nothing in here about cheaper. That is very intentional. If you make this about cost, it will kill it. Japanese companies learnt this around lean transformations in the 70s. Nobody will knowingly work themselves or their colleagues out of a job. So it's not about cost. It is about quality, value, safety, time to value, time to learning, and happiness. I'd separate out cost. And as I said, everybody can relearn. It's not a case of having to make a whole load of business analysts and project managers redundant and then trying to hire product owners and scrum masters, because you know what, every time I've seen a company try to do that, they've not been able to do it. And they end up hiring back their project managers, typically, is also what I've seen. So the benefits that we've seen at our previous place of work after 3.5 years, we saw a 20 times improvement on quality. There was a 20 times reduction in failure demand. We saw on average a 3 times improvement on lead time, specifically the 85th percentile lead time in a histogram of lead times. The 85th percentile came in to be 3 times quicker on average. The best teams were 20 times quicker. So that's less sunk cost fallacy. That's quicker ability to pivot. It's quicker learning. It's less risk. And we also saw a positive compliance trend. Where things did go wrong, the impact radius was reduced because it was a whimper rather than a bang, because it was more smaller change. And speaking to colleagues who were in those roles around information security, cyber, data privacy, and so on, the feedback was that previously they were spending 80% of their time reactively firefighting, and with improvement in ways of working, they were spending 80% of their time proactively fixing, helping teams avoid things going wrong in the first place. And for happier, we saw the highest ever colleague engagement scores. People were the happiest they had ever been, because it's a more humane way of working. People working together in multidisciplinary teams with customer proximity, with a fast feedback loop, so you get pride in your work, people were the happiest they'd ever been at work. And for me, this is a major motivator for me, is around creating a more humane world of work where people are happier. You know, I did a post on this on LinkedIn just a few days ago around pride. People have more pride in their work. So those are the outcomes that we pivoted. Those are the outcomes that we find work, you know, whether you're public sector, private sector, military, charity, religion, whenever you've got organized human endeavor trying to achieve something, it doesn't matter what industry you are, whether you're commercial or not commercial, focusing on the outcomes is the most important thing. Agile, lean, DevOps, everything else are tools in your toolbox. And the anti-pattern is doing a thing transformation where you're measuring how agile are we. That's a mistake we made. Nokia did a similar thing. Nokia Mobile, they had their large-scale Scrum test, scoring highly. They were doing Scrum very well, but it didn't save Symbian. According to the chairman of Nokia, his assessment in the book Transforming Nokia was what led to the demise of Symbian was a lack of psychological safety. Bad news was buried and wasn't being communicated upwards. That's his appraisal. We wrote this book to share the lessons we've learned the hard way, the mistakes we've made, so that hopefully other people don't need to make the same mistakes that we've made and that other people have made, to help create more humane ways of working with a view to help organizations and people focus on business agility rather than doing agile and treating agile like it's a silver bullet. So thank you very much for listening, and we're happy to take questions.
One of the things that I took away from what you just said is an ongoing challenge that I've seen plenty of times around the balance between leaders with psychological safety and the whole concept of change the org or change the org. So have you seen people who have done that really well? How are they faced into that challenge?
There is a need to have a conversation with the most senior leadership team possible. Because if you know, as I'm sure you know, Andrew, you know, if you've got a bubble of better ways of working in an org, that bubble will be anchored at the top by the most senior leader who is supporting and incentivizing behavior change in order to deliver better outcomes. So if it's not the most senior leadership team in an organization, then you'll have a bubble over here and you'll have a bubble over here and a bubble over here. But then you'll have other people who are just like, well, no, I'm not incentivized to change. I'm quite happy to maintain the status quo. And you'll never get past these disconnected bubbles. You know, the PMO, the finance process, everything else will still continue to be a problem. So my personal experiences around what helps to try to engage with the exco, try and engage with the senior leadership team. This is where I find myself spending a fair amount of my time, and articulate it. You know, start with why. The first question is why. You know, so why change? And invite over inflict. So in speaking to a leadership team, if the answer to why change is we don't need to change, that's fine. Nobody is here to convince anyone of anything. This is another really important point. What I've learned is the words convince and resistance should not enter your vocabulary if you're going about change the right way. Because the more you try to convince people, the more resistance there will be. Peter Senge, Fifth Discipline, the harder you push against the system, the harder it's back. So it's inviting participation, adding optionality. Hi, I'm here to help you solve your problems. What are your problems? Oh, I think we can help solve your problems. Let's run some experiments. So that's one thought, Andrew. And then a second thought is, you know, you can't inflict coaching. You can invite coaching. So back to the invite over inflict, invite participation from a leadership team who would like to be coached, who would like to go first, and then you generate social proof, then you communicate, and then the people sitting on the fence come off the fence, the people who are critics start sitting on the fence, and eventually over time you get a bit of a gravitational pull across, and it does take years. There is no, to one of the questions, there is no quick fix.
So if you're interested in joining the community, you can find your local one at businessagility.institute/BAM and sign up so you don't miss out on any of the future coming events.